Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being with us tonight. We come together this evening in very difficult circumstances. Over the past days, our community, and indeed the wider Australian community, have been shaken by the horrific attack in Bondi. Our hearts are with the victims, with their families and loved ones, and with all those who have been deeply affected. We extend our sincere condolences and our wishes for healing and for speedy recovery to those who were injured. At moments like this, words often feel inadequate. Yet what gives us strength is knowing that we are not alone, that we stand together, caring for one another, united in compassion and responsibility. Am Echad, one people, one community. Tonight's gathering is an expression of this solidarity. It's about coming together to support one another, to listen, to learn, and to find strength, both as individuals and as a community. Hadassah Australia, together with Hadassah Medical Organization in Jerusalem and in collaboration with Hadassah International, moved quickly in response to this tragedy to offer practical and professional support. Drawing on decades of experience in trauma care and emergency response, Hadassah's mental health experts have been sharing guidance with professionals, families, and community organizations to help navigate the emotional impact of this moment in the days ahead. This evening's webinar is part of this response. We are honored to be joined by Dr. Shiri Ben-David, Chief Psychologist at Hadassah Medical Organization in Jerusalem. Dr. Shiri Ben-David brings deep expertise and long-standing experience in supporting individuals, families, and communities through times of trauma and uncertainty. Tonight, Dr. Ben-David will share with us practical, accessible tools to support emotional well-being, including guidance on how to speak with our children and young people during times of fear and distress. We are also pleased to be joined by Susie Sass, who will moderate this evening's discussion. Susie is a social worker by profession and serves as a chair of Hadassah Australia's Development Committee. There will be time for questions and discussion, and we encourage you to submit your questions through the questions and answers box. We are proud to be part of this community that stands together in times of darkness and seeks the light, the strength and healing. I am now handing it over to you, Susie and Shiri. Toda rabba.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Before we start, I want to make a note about emotional well-being. This webinar is intended to offer general support and guidance. If you or someone you know shows ongoing signs of distress, such as persistent anxiety, changes in behavior, sleep difficulties, withdrawal, or intense fear, it is important to seek support from a qualified mental health professional, such as a psychologist, counselor, or GP. Seeking help is a sign of strength and care, and early support can make a meaningful difference. Thank you, Shiri, for being here tonight from Jerusalem to support our community in this very difficult time. What are some of the normal reactions to a traumatic event?
Hi, Susie. First of all, good evening, everyone. I'm so sorry to meet you under these horrible circumstances, but happy to provide my share. You asked about the normal reactions, and I would say almost every reaction is normal in the first few hours and days after such an abnormal event. I would like to say that what is abnormal is the event and not the reactions. So whether people, adults or children or teenagers, are expressing high levels of anxiety, nightmares, flashbacks, memories of the events, the need to avoid places or people, or an encouraged need to talk about the event, watch the media. If people feel irritated, difficulties in sleeping, all these are normal reactions in the few days and even 1 or 2 weeks after the event is happening. Now, I know these reactions are frightening and it's very difficult to feel them, and it is difficult to observe your loved ones express them. But still, it doesn't make them abnormal, because when we are facing an abnormal event, we are expressing our feelings in an extreme manner.
Thank you. Most people will naturally recover without formal treatment. What does natural recovery look like in the weeks following a traumatic event?
Mhm. Well, there is a variety of ways to recover, but generally speaking, we're talking about a slow recovery, whereas symptoms fade away very gradually. So if someone doesn't sleep at all, he will be able to sleep for 2 hours a night, 3 hours a night, and so on. If there are many flashbacks, they will diminish little by little. Generally speaking, it will not just disappear one day, but will gradually fade away until very little is left, if any.
At what point should individuals or families start to worry that stress responses are not settling and may need professional support?
So as long as it takes more time, we are more concerned. So what is very normal in the first few days becomes more worrying if it is 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later on, still the same. If it is improving, but improving slowly, it is okay. But if it is not improving at all, then we are worried. And I would also like to emphasize that there are reactions that we are worried about, even if it is very close to the event. And these are reactions that put a person at risk to himself or to others. So if somebody's reactions involve violent behavior that may impair or endanger people around him, of course, we should treat immediately. And if someone expresses suicidal ideation, death wishes, death thoughts, we are not waiting. Not because it will not improve in time, but because this person may hurt himself before it is improving.
How do we discuss a traumatic event with family and friends?
Well, my attitude is always to talk about what has happened. We know that avoidance is one of the behaviors that mostly impairs natural recovery, because if we avoid either talking or meeting people or going to places, these places and conversations and people still remain attached to the traumatic event, and we cannot recover if a certain person or a certain place is always attached in our memory to the traumatic event. So if I can take a concrete example, if we keep avoiding going to Bondi Park because this is where it happened, it will always remind us what has happened there, because our memory of the park is attached to the memory of the trauma. But if we gradually go back and visit there, then we have new memories about the park, and we can have new memories attached to this place, so the traumatic event fades away gradually. So the same things happens with talking about the event. If we avoid talking about it, then it stays in our mind as something that we cannot touch, that if we touch it, it will break us, it will tear us apart. And if we are talking about the event, even though it is tiring and bothersome and bring us to pain, little by little, it becomes like a story that we're telling and not a trauma that has happened to us. So I highly encourage you to speak about what has happened. It is better to speak about it with people who are not overwhelmed and will exacerbate our responses, but people that are able to listen and to ask questions. And the best way to process the event is talk about what has happened, in details, telling what happened before, what happened later, filling the gaps in memory with information, with accurate information, and build a coherent story of what happened from the beginning to the end, something that I can rely on and tell it again and again as a story that has happened. And eventually, after a while that we're talking about it, it will sound more like a story that has happened to somebody than as a trauma that occurred to me.
Thank you. Social media can intensify anxiety. What practical advice would you give people about managing news and online content during periods of heightened stress?
I feel that regarding the social media, we are in an inner conflict because we feel that we need to know everything. It puts us under a sense or an illusion of control. So we want to consume more and more information, but consuming more and more information tells our brain that this is a very important thing that happened and we should continue dealing with it and keep on our anxiety alert because it is very important and very dangerous. So within this conflict, I would say manage your exposure to the media and social media. Decide how often you want to open your phone or open your TV, whether it be once a day, twice a day, even once an hour. Sometimes it's better than all the time. But be in control of your exposure. Decide in advance how much you want to be exposed and manage it, be in control over it.
Can you explain why small techniques like grounding and breathing exercises are effective when the body is in its emergency mode?
Yes, sometimes it feels very little. How can it help, in such a huge event and reactions? But the thing is that when we are in alert, our body transitions itself to an alert mode, what we call the arousal of the sympathetic activation, which is very important in times of danger because it enables us to fight or to walk away as soon as possible and to protect ourselves. And this arousal is what helped many people escape the event. So being in an aroused mode is very important within the time of danger. But once danger is over, if we are still alert, it impairs our normal functioning. It keeps us very anxious. It impairs our bodily functionings. It impairs our immune system. And breathing and relaxation techniques are helping the body to go back to his general routine functioning, the parasympathetic functioning, which we sometimes cannot do in any other way. We cannot tell ourselves to calm down, but breathing enables the body to go back to his general routine functioning, which is what we want to encourage.
Thank you. How do small tasks and practical acts of support help restore a sense of control and resilience for individuals and communities?
Well, we know from past experience all over the world with trauma that one of the major difficulties in dealing with trauma is the sense of helplessness. And within the trauma, indeed, we are often helpless. We cannot protect ourselves, but this feeling of being helpless remains with us. And it is one of the risk factors for developing post-traumatic stress disorders and other mental difficulties. So we're doing the best we can to change this feeling of helplessness into feeling of competence and of self-efficacy. And we're doing the best we can to change, to make this transition in our inner position. And conducting small tasks, whether it be at home, going back to our routine, taking care of ourselves or of our family members, to going back to normal functioning, like going to work and to school, to developing our tasks and roles within the community restores a sense of self-efficacy and of being capable. And if we are able to provide something to somebody else, whether it be our children or the elderly in the community or our friends around the community, it restores a sense of efficacy and diminishes the feeling of helplessness.
Thank you. How can our community play a role in helping people cope after such a traumatic event?
Well, we know that social support is one of the main protective factors against developing psychopathology after a traumatic event. And social support is provided mainly within the community. And we know that strong communities have the power to protect people from developing mental distress. We saw it very broadly in Israel after October 7th, that the communities and the kibbutzim were strong protectors for their members compared to big cities where people were spread all over and didn't have their communities. So the community with its institutions and its important members that all that people know and its activities that put people together has a strong impact in protecting community members' mental health.
It's the power of community. It's incredible, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Supporting children and young people is what I think we'll pivot to at the moment or now. How do we start the conversation with children and young people in an age-appropriate way?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what you say, age appropriate, is the most important concept. But generally speaking, I would say that there is no age where we would recommend to avoid talking about what has happened. Only the conversation should be, as you said, age appropriate. I would begin by asking what they know. And of course, it is very different for people who live within the community and know people who were there and got injured. And of course, it is different for people who were there from people who are more away. But I would begin the conversation by asking what they know. And relying on what they know, I would ask what they want to know. And my approach with children is always that if they ask questions, it means that they are capable of receiving the honest and right answers. So whenever they're asking, I would provide the most accurate and correct answers without too many details, without graphic information, but provide accurate information. We have to remember that we as parents parents and grandparents are the most reliable source of information for our children and the ones that they rely on. And if we are not providing the information, the full information, the correct information, they will receive it from somewhere else. But then one thing is that we don't have any control of the way that this information is provided to them if it is not by us. And the second thing is that we give the message that we are not able to discuss this information, so they should go somewhere else. So we have all the reasons to provide accurate information and to convey the message that it is okay to talk to us about what has happened. If we see that children hold misbeliefs or misinformation, we should correct it and provide them with the right answers. And of course, keep saying that something horrible has happened and we cannot deny it. And we cannot make it smaller than it was because it is horrible. But us as parents and family are doing our best to protect our children, and we're taking the safety precautions that we need to protect them. And we will keep on doing everything that we can, us, the community, the police, to prevent these things from happening again.
Thank you. What signs in children suggest that distress is becoming more serious and professional support should be considered?
Well, as we said earlier, as long as symptoms persist without improving, even slowly, after about 2 weeks, it is something that we should consider. But within the first 2 weeks, unless we see very, very extreme responses like children who are not sleeping for a few consecutive nights at all, or avoiding even getting out of home, not just walking, not just avoiding going to the place where it happened, but just avoiding every activity, or expressing suicidal ideation, then I would seek professional help right away. But otherwise, it is very important to keep saying that these reactions are normal and what has happened is what is abnormal.
Thank you. We have some questions from the participants, so I'll just run through one at a time. We hear a lot about post-traumatic stress disorder. Is this a common outcome?
Well, it is much less common than what we're talking about. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, first of all, occurs only 1 month after the event has happened. This is because we believe that most reactions are normal in the first few weeks. So today, nothing to worry about PTSD. No one suffers PTSD today from this event in Sydney. Within a month, we will be able to talk about persistent symptoms that may be diagnosed as PTSD. Still, it is important to note that PTSD is a rare outcome of being exposed to traumatic event. About 85% of people who have undergone an attack will not suffer PTSD eventually. So, other reactions, of course, we will see symptoms of PTSD that will not be fully diagnosed. We will see sleep difficulties, we will see anxiety symptoms, but PTSD is a rare reaction.
Thank you. How can we discuss fear without amplifying it?
I'm not afraid of amplifying because it is there. And not discussing it will not make it go away. It will only make the person feel very lonely with their fear. So I would say discuss fear. Ask about fear reactions. Ask people what they fear about. Make a difference between what we should still fear from and what is not dangerous anymore. Terrorists are dangerous. The park is not dangerous. And if we will not discuss fear, it will not disappear.
Thank you. What does solidarity look like in practical terms?
Well, what we're doing now. And there are very different and many ways to express solidarity because solidarity means you are not alone. And there are many ways to be together. It is evening in Australia now, it is morning in Jerusalem now, and we're still together. So there are many ways to express your solidarity with your friends, family, and community members. Ask people what they need. Don't assume that you know what people need, but ask if they need concrete help, if they need emotional support, what they want to talk about, what they want to avoid talking about. Provide the kind of help that people actually need and ask for.
Thank you. If a child asks what happens to people who have died, what do we say?
Well, people have died in a very, very tragic manner, but it is not different than any other death that we're experiencing in our lives. And I would say that the answer should rely on your own beliefs. What would you say if grandpa died? Where is he now? So some people would say he's in heaven, he's in the sky, his soul is with us. He will be back when the Mashiach is arriving, dependent on your belief of what is happening after we die.
Thank you. That's really helpful. What does meaningful recovery look like months after the event? So not now, not in a few weeks, but months
Mhm.
afterwards.
We like the term of post-traumatic growth to describe meaningful recovery. It actually doesn't mean that we will not suffer any symptoms anymore. The people after a traumatic event may still remember it, sometimes even if they don't want aroused when talking about it or when exposed to a trigger that reminds it, but still feels that the event has made a meaningful change in their lives. Like asking themselves what is really important in our lives, maybe changing your priorities, putting more effort and mental energy in the things that are more important to you, and less energy and time in the things that you may have spent a lot of before, but now feel that, life is short and I have survived, and maybe I should put my energy in something else, investing more in close relationships. So this is like putting meaning into a traumatic event.
Mm. Are there things that should be remembered and things that should be let go?
Hmm. Well, I wish we had control over this. Um, Well, I believe everything that happens to us changes us for the best. And even, I'm sorry, um, even very, very bad experiences can be shaped into making us stronger, more resilient, more caring for each other. I wouldn't want to forget details, even if I had the ability, and I don't have it. But what is really important is making the details and making the memories more manageable. Something that will not be, aroused and highly triggered once we remember it. And we can achieve that by keep telling the story and making it coherent with all the details within it, even the ones that we would think we want to forget, but making it part of our story.
Fantastic. You discuss smaller communities. Any advice for smaller communities in a country like Australia where affected people may be very isolated? We are a very, very large space, much larger than obviously Israel, and
Mhm.
people can live really far from each other.
Mhm. Well, I think geography is not a real obstacle. As you know, I was in Melbourne and in Sydney last August, and I met many people from the Jewish community, and I was so impressed but how people who live so far away can feel so close to each other. And I think the Jewish communities in Melbourne and Sydney are very, very strong communities. And they have their institutions and they have their routine activities. And I think that for people who don't feel that they belong enough to the community, this is a time to do so, to ask how can you contribute, what kind of help can you provide and get from the community, and even in large geographic settings, there are many ways to be together physically or using the social media platforms.
Thank you. Is there any specific language you would advise avoiding when discussing violence?
Um, Well, I think as you understood, I don't recommend avoiding anything,
Yes.
um, but I would recommend not to get into details of graphic information of how violence occurred, including watching videos and discussing these details, because when it is graphic, it can become like a stuck picture in our mind that can come back in flashbacks and in nightmares. So I would like to diminish that.
Okay. Um, this is an interesting question. I find it very interesting. Having you here from Jerusalem, how did Jewish values inform your department's response to trauma? And do you see our community response as being different to a response not based within the Jewish community? It's an interesting one.
It is interesting. Um, I am third generation of Holocaust survivor, and it is not a very strong part of my identity. No, I'm an Israeli. I grew up here, and I think being Israeli is my major identity. Um, but after my visit to Australia last summer and meeting so many people who are Holocaust survivors, and it is a very strong part of their identity, it really made me think anew about this part of my life and of our lives here in Israel. And I think um, that a community that is Holocaust survivors in a general manner, even if not one specific family, um, does imply values and care that are different from people who doesn't have this part in their history, in their DNA. And I think it does affect the way that we are treating trauma, the way that we are thinking about resilience, um, our hope that we can grow out of such traumatic events. After October 7th, I had a conversation with a physician who was under a real existential crisis, and he said, "No, we will never get over that. Something so bad has happened to us, we will never recover." And I told him, we recovered the Holocaust. And it is very bad what has happened now. I cannot compare. I cannot compare October 7th and Bondi Beach and the Holocaust. No, I cannot compare them, but I know that in our DNA, we have the ability to be resilient and grow out of trauma. And I think it is a very strong belief that we have, in our DNA.
I agree. Um, when emotions are high, what can community leaders do in a wider sense to support their community?
Mhm. Well, first of all, validate. All reactions are normal. Do not be judgmental. Validate every reaction that we see and be together. Provide the opportunities of being together. Initiate as many meetings as possible for different age groups, for different coherent groups. Provide the opportunities of being together.
Mm. How do things change for victims and other traumatized people once the news cycle has actually moved on? People stop talking about it.
Mm-hmm. It really depends. Some people find it helpful that people stop discussing it all the time because it can also help them to go into a certain routine. And some people feel that they are left back. They remain with all the symptoms and feelings and memories, and people are not there anymore. So it's really individual. And what I would recommend is ask people, how is it for them? And then we can understand what is the real help that they need from us.
Mm. Another question. In theory, we actually have a social media ban in this country for children. In
Mhm.
practice, they're saying maybe not, and I have evidence of that. It's a big topic, but how do parents manage that? Because young children are very much still seeing quite horrific images on their
Mhm.
phones
Mhm.
through social media.
Yeah, actually, when I heard about this new law in Australia, I was quite curious, how is it gonna work? Um, I would say manage it the same way as you are managing your children's social media before this event. We are all the time concerned about what children are exposed to, and us as parents have our own educational ways to deal with it. Um, so this is a huge event that has happened, but our policy as parents has not changed regarding what we believe our children should be exposed to. I remember to talk to many of you, maybe some people are here today as well, about exposure to anti-Semitism in the social media in Australia. I think it was like about a month or 2 months ago that we had this discussion, and we said the same things, that the same policy that we apply as parents, we should apply here under this situation. If there are young children, we can have more control over their phones and the time that they are with their phones. If they are older, we have less control of everything that they're doing, including their exposure to social media. But developing an open communication with them, ask them what they saw, what they know, if something that they saw is bothering them, encourage them to talk to us.
Thank you. Do you think the response to an event like this is very different where Jewish people are a minority in a country compared to Israel? Yeah.
It is different and non-different in different ways. Um, yes, of course, being a minority is always a disadvantage, and it becomes more disadvantage after going through such an event, and asking yourself how much can you be protected where you are, and what is the attitude of the majority to what has happened to you. But I also think it's an opportunity for the majority to express solidarity and to express support. And I think this is also something that is happening in Australia right now. And I can tell you that being a majority in Israel didn't do much help in the few days after October 7th. Asking yourself if you're protected at your own homes was not a clear answer.
You speak eloquently and logically, yet I feel that as an Israeli, you are tougher and more resilient than those of us in the diaspora. This is the question. This is new for us, and we don't have the same background for dealing with so much death, actually.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. I know. I know that it is new, and everything that is new is frightening more than something that you are used to. I can only rely on my experience, as I unfortunately do have experience in that, in telling you that what you may not be able to see now, I can already see. And this is the recovery processes and the symptoms that will improve in time, and the community that will be able to stick together. And I completely understand what you're saying, that you cannot see that right now because you are there and it is happening to you, and it is very, very new and different and frightening. And I think I'm here to say that I can also see the way out.
Thank you. As a question Israelis would identify with, is engaging in political discussion potentially helpful, is the question.
Never helpful. Never.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we could open up another whole webinar about this. Obviously, at the moment, there are some very strong feelings and thoughts. But
No, I would answer
non-political, I think.
I would answer that from a psychological point of view. It can be helpful to discuss politics with people that you know that already agree with you, because
Okay.
it makes you feel you're not alone. But being engaged in a conversation where you want to convince something with the opposite way, first of all, never succeeds. Second, does not improve your distress.
That's really helpful. Well, Shiri, I really wanted to thank you for giving your expertise and time. It has just been so valuable for me having this discussion with you, and I'm sure and I know for all the people who are watching. From the moment this tragedy took place, literally within, I think, 20 minutes, we started receiving calls from Hadassah International. They have been incredibly supportive for our community and for us at Hadassah Australia. Within 20 to 30 minutes, they provided us, thanks to you, with an incredible psychologist that have helped delivering really incredibly high level of psychological training to the frontline professionals in Sydney and Melbourne. And they've also sent out from Hadassah International a psychologist to help with the logistics, who's right now in Sydney. We really appreciate Hadassah. We appreciate your support. And really, Shiri, I've met you in person and again on the Zoom. You're so generous with your time. And we really thank you. Thank you for being with us and thank you for sharing really insightful thoughts. And it certainly has helped me. And I know and I'm sure it has helped others tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for hosting me, and I'm sending you all my love and hugs and hope for the best.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much, Shiri.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.